I just couldn't go back to normal life in Sweden anymore. It didn't work, couldn't sit in an office. I didn't really feel Swedish in that sense anymore. Then, I followed the path of Brazil, which led me to where I am now. I don't want to make anyone angry here, but even, thinking about comparing Rio to a war zone, it's lunacy.
Привit and greetings. Welcome to another vodcast with me, Conor Clyne. This is the New Europe Experience, and today I am conducting a intercontinental interview with a YouTuber who has been based in Brazil, most recently, a country that I actually also really love. His name is Rikard Ljungqvist, known as, and better known as, the Swedish Gringo.
That's right.
And I'm super excited to have Rikard on today to give you a perspective about why guys like us, me and Rikard, have left Western Europe. He's ended up in Brazil, at least for the last few years. I'm currently in what I dub New Europe. So even though I'm trying to confuse everybody with the Moldovan polo shirt today, you can see the Odesa Opera House. I'm actually in Ukraine, and we're going to have a discussion about the push and pull factors that have resulted in us living a more, international lifestyle, but at the same time, overcoming the difficulties and challenges to integrate and maybe even eventually assimilate in the countries that we have been hanging out in. So, Rikard, bom dia.
Bom dia. Good morning, Ukraine.
I know that
it's good to be here.
So, I know that there's a little bit of a lag on the connection on the audio, so I'll try not to talk over you too much. But bom dia, I know you're in Rio de Janeiro, in Rio today, so maybe give everybody, first of all, a little bit of a background to who you are, where you've been born, obviously, where you grew up, and the transition, and
too many questions at once.
In Brazil, having a YouTube channel, which is, for me, it looks like the best. Definitely, it's my favorite YouTube channel about Brazil from a foreigner.
Thank you so much. That's very flattering. I have a rule with anyone who's talking to me: never give me more than 2 questions at the same time. It's impossible to remember in which order to respond. I'll start with myself. My name is Rikard. I'm from Sweden, and I'm also known as the Swedish Gringo. And my journey, like in the limelight, started when I was starting to visit Brazil. I came here during the pandemic, and I never really once looked back. So 6 years now in Brazil, currently living here full time since 3 years back, and sitting now in my very own penthouse in Rio de Janeiro, one of my 2 properties at the current moment.
Phenomenal. So you're, as you said, from Sweden originally. What was the path you took to end up eventually moving to Brazil, and how did you set up that lifestyle?
My path is a little less romantic than most Brazilians would like to think. I'd already been traveling a lot. I'd done 90 countries already when I first set foot here in Brazil. I came simply because Brazil was open during the pandemic. We had a look at the world map, and Brazil was welcoming, stupid tourists like me. I had COVID already, so I wasn't exposing anyone too much. And I did pretty much the whole COVID here in Brazil, and once the COVID was over, I just couldn't go back to normal life in Sweden anymore. It didn't work, couldn't sit in an office. I didn't really feel Swedish in that sense anymore. So I started, just kind of transitioning for real back to Brazil, be staying here permanently. So that's simply, I didn't choose to move to Brazil. It happened. I didn't belong in Sweden anymore after spending the pandemic here, because people were just so much more open, so much more friendly. You actually live here in Sweden, your life is over after 35. It's like you're just supposed to have a family and not do anything fun anymore. So that's pretty much my story.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, that's why I'm here.
Okay, I can see a lot of overlap with many things that have happened with me personally as well. I actually considered moving to Brazil 15 years ago as a lawyer. And in the end, I took a job in Munich in Germany, and life went a different direction. But also with the COVID lockdowns, I was actually here in Ukraine, primarily in Odesa, but I vlogged most of the country, and I didn't leave until we had the invasion in 2022. So also my destiny has been forged to a certain extent also by the COVID pandemic. I was splitting my time a lot with Belarus before then, and obviously geopolitical events have overtaken that a little bit. It's interesting you say that you felt that being over 35. How old are you at the moment?
My exact age is not, what do you say, disclosed at this point, because then people can figure out when I'm 40, and the Swedish Gringo is he's not allowed to become 40 years old.
Okay, well,
let's just say
you're over 35
I'm
for
around
sure.
35, where the life currently ends in Sweden.
Okay, where life currently ends in Sweden. So did you find that it was a lifestyle difficulty being, I guess, a single guy? You mentioned not having kids, being in Sweden, that it didn't seem so appealing, and maybe it had felt more appealing when you were in your 20s, and then you saw maybe a second lease of life by relocating to Brazil. Would that be fair to say?
Well, not exactly. People always get a little annoyed when I have nothing bad to say about Sweden or the Swedish women in particular. I didn't have anything to complain about. I was just not very happy with my job. I let too much time pass by sitting in an office I didn't like. And I was kind of, set to continue the path of the Swedish, forming a family and settling down. So I actually thought I was pretty okay, pretty happy. It was first when I came to Brazil, I realized that you actually don't have to do all those things. So it was like a rebirth. I wasn't unhappy in Sweden, at least not knowingly, but when I came here to Brazil, a new path opened, like you said, and I very much prefer traveling that path. With that said, all my friends back home in Sweden, although now, married, most of them have kids, they are super happy as well. And there is no wrong or right here. It was just me feeling I had some more exploration left to do.
That's interesting that it seems like Brazil was pulling you rather than Sweden per se pushing you, in terms of like you weren't dissatisfied being in Sweden, but when you had seen Brazil and the kind of lifestyle that you could have in Brazil, you thought, okay, this fits me personally more.
Yeah, I didn't really make any choices at all. About anything. It was chosen for me. I came here, then I couldn't go back. Then, I followed the path of Brazil, which led me to where I am now. I'm just, traveling down my path. It's not any active choices that I'm still not married, still not have kids. It's just fun to be here and enjoy the moment. So eventually, I'm probably going to end up there anyways. But Brazil doesn't, force you into that kind of conformity as, it happens to be in Sweden when all your friends are getting married and having kids.
For you, it was also partly maybe social circle in Sweden, that they were at a different stage of life to you, and it didn't really fit like it had before. And then by relocating to Brazil, there's a lot of serendipity involved in it, right? It wasn't thought out as a strategic plan per se, but that's kind of where you feel like it's a better fit for you personally at this stage of your life.
I think everyone can relate. When your friend's not going out anymore, you can't go out. So you sit at home, you don't do anything in particular. It gets a little boring. In Sweden, your friends tend to be the people you've been with for years and years and years. You're very, glued together. So it's not the easiest thing to just, get a new set of friends in Sweden and start, second round of the nightlife lifestyle. So, yes, I tried to, find a friend group that was a little younger, but eventually I outgrew them as well.
Very good. Very interesting to hear, especially about the serendipity that it, just kind of fell into place over time in Brazil. How, having made the relocation to Brazil, how did you look at financing yourself and setting yourself up more strategically in Brazil? Because you've been quite successful, what I can see in the channel, with that since then.
Well, thank you. So once again, I just traveled my path. I didn't come here trying to make any big financial decisions in the beginning. I didn't really have any strategy. I didn't come here to make money. I came here because I wanted to be here, and when I realized, yes, I want to stay, and my apartment in Sweden doesn't do me any good just, being around there. I went about and sold it, and obviously, when you're a foreigner in a country like Brazil, you will need help to acquire a new property. And that's where I was very lucky to have a good friend of me being a lawyer. She's actually specialized in foreign investment. So it was all done with the help of my friends, to be honest. And traveling that road now for 2 years' time, I've picked up some experience myself, buying 2 apartments, and now I'm helping other people to relocate the same way that I did. So the answer is, don't try to do these things alone. Sitting as a gringo, coming into a totally different culture, you can't just use your own strategies because the rules of the games are so different here. You need to take help of people actually living here that you can trust.
So you actually had a social circle. You know, I have a legal background. I've worked for a lawyer for many years. So that actually came in very useful for you when you were looking at what options you could have in terms of investing in real estate in Brazil.
Yes,
right?
The social circle is gold here. That's something I always try to advise my clients when they come, and also friends visiting for a longer time. Don't just focus on the fun stuff. Don't just focus on the girls. Try to make bonds, make friends, especially with people that, you know, are actually living here, because they will be the ones helping you to establish yourself. It will not be the girls you meet in the bar or random people, you know, on the beach. It's people you've actually built meaningful connections with that might also, you know, have some kind of education.
You got a special skill set that's going to be useful to you in terms of setting up your life and actually thriving as opposed to just having a fun kind of extended vacation.
That's true. And with friends, you know, sorry for, you know, climbing onto the same thing. Having friends here will lead to the same results anyway. So even the guys who are, you know, a little too obsessed with the ladies, having a friend group is gonna, you know, help you with that stuff as well. So please focus on making friends as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of synergies to having a strong social circle. Is something obviously that I emphasize here on my own channel. So we have to segue it into the Brazilian women because it's come up already twice. And I know for a lot of guys who are interested in Brazil and presumably are interested in your content on YouTube, but I know for sure it's also a big factor on my channel. What is it like dating in Brazil? I'm not sure if you're currently single, but you have been single at different times there. And how would you compare it to your previous experiences? I know that you've traveled around. You've even been in this country, Ukraine, before. And you know, what would you say are the pluses and minuses? Because there's no utopia, obviously.
Yeah, I know. It's impossible talking about Brazil without talking about the women. And to a large degree, yes, that's what my channel covers as well. And also part of what I'm actually working with here in Brazil. Well, there's no short answer for it. The way you're dating and interacting in Brazil is just completely the opposite of Sweden. It's so totally inherently different. In Sweden, if you can use that as an example, or the whole of the Northern Europe, you take a long time to get to know each other. It takes time to build bonds and to move further. In Brazil, and especially in Rio, everything in that department just happens faster. So I like to not just focus on dating, but every social interaction here is just much more fluid, easier. People are more open for communication of any kind, and it's just more fun. So even if you're not coming here romantically, when you engage in the social interactions, you get so much positive feedback all the time. The same if you're actually trying to pick up girls, doing your thing, you won't get your head chopped off like you would be, you know, sometimes in the States.
I guess you mean metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically speaking. Oh,
in
yes.
Sweden.
Here, girls and people in general are much more open for compliments and, you know, having fun while trying each other out a little. So that's a very fun aspect. When it comes to, you know, the second steps, yes, things tend to happen a little faster as well. Kissing will definitely, you know, happen at a very early stage. And since the friend groups here are, you know, big and pretty tight, that information doesn't leave the small group. So while Brazil is, or the big group, while Brazil is a traditional country, people are very much free to do whatever they want, share the information within the group of their friends, and their families will never know of it. So It's
Okay.
definitely an interesting place to be dating, yes. To answer the last or the first question, currently, no, I'm not single. No, yeah.
Okay, you're not single. Okay, so you're in a relationship. That's at least we can call it a long-term relationship, I guess, if you put a label as like that you're not single. So would you say, because it sounds like the social life is so different between Brazil and Sweden, where Sweden is known for, well, first of all, Sweden is known for the beauty of its women, that's for sure. At the same time, the culture is seen as a lot more reserved. Would that be fair to say? And it seems like from what you're saying that you need a lot more time in Sweden. I mean, it's also partly because you are Swedish yourself, so you're not in a foreign culture. Do you think that also plays into it a bit in Brazil, the fact that you are the Swedish Gringo, quite literally, in Rio de Janeiro, and in Sweden you're another Swede, for example? I mean, does that have a big impact? Do you think there's a lot of foreigner factor for the fact that you are Swedish?
I guess we're still talking about the ladies here, right? So.
Yeah, we can keep on that thread.
Yeah, well, it's a totally different game to start with. I'd say I was fairly popular in Sweden as well, but yes, investing much more time, effort in Sweden to acquire the same results. There is something, we can call it the gringo effect, coming here. Rio particularly likes foreigners. They're very curious about other cultures. So you might be a little extra interesting, at the beginning, just for being a foreigner. So yes, that will definitely play in, but it's not just as easy as that. A lot of the gringos coming here will be surprised over how little it accounts for being a foreigner, because they actually like their own guys here as well. So in the end, it's about Brazil allowing my personality to come through a little more, allowing me to feel a little less, bound by, less limited socially. And that makes you more fun. And fun is what people are looking for here. So when you come here, you can let go of the shackles that might be holding you back. And you will simply become a more interesting person. That is 100% working as you come back to your home country as well. Brazil has helped me immensely to become more social and successful, if you want to use that word, in Sweden as well.
Okay, that's very interesting that you still had a bit of a halo effect, as we would call it, when you got back to Sweden, because you're just used to being a lot more social. As you say, you don't feel as constrained by the social conventions.
Exactly.
Of being in Sweden. Since you live abroad, you're kind of, I guess, even maybe a little bit of a Swedish gringo, and you go back to,
I guess maybe a little.
to wherever
everyone
it is
wants to be
in
social.
Sweden, if Stockholm or Gothenburg, wherever it happens to be.
Yeah, everyone wants to have a good time. Everyone wants good conversations and good energy in their conversations. So when you bring that back to your country that might be a little more closed, you will get very positive feedback for being that person. Latinos have very good reputation in Sweden. We try to learn from them, because we don't want to be as shut down as we are.
Interesting also that you don't see that the foreigner factor is really that significant in Brazil nowadays. Brazil is a place that I've traveled to extensively as a single guy.
I gotta cut you off there though. Sorry about that. Before we go further, Rio specifically is very used to foreign visitors. Brazil is a huge country, so yes, if you're traveling up to the northeast or even actual north, the Amazon and such, there you will have yes, a real difference in how people are treating you. There your value of just being a foreigner will be much higher. In Rio, they are pretty used to foreigners coming, although we're still interesting.
Yeah. I would say that also coincides, especially if you go to the north, where if you're European, then you're going to stand out more. If you go to the very south of Brazil, you don't stand out at all. Basically, you look like a local, because most people have our kind of like features. Basically, if you go to the very south of Brazil, and it's pretty similar in Argentina and Uruguay as well. So you see that for guys who are going to Brazil, that foreigner factor, especially in Rio, because Brazil is such a huge tourist destination. There are millions of tourists every year. It reminds me a little bit of this region in the sense that there was probably a lot of mystique 10, 15 years ago if you came from Sweden, if you came from France, if you came from the US. But nowadays, Ukraine aside, because we have awards, we have basically no international tourism whatsoever. So you're definitely going to be a rare commodity here if you come to Ukraine. But then the rest of it being simply a foreigner, probably not going to make a huge difference to your dating prospects. Would you say that's a fair summary?
Well, it depends a little on who you are or your previous experiences. I've been traveling a lot, so I'm used to be getting attention for being a foreigner. So in comparison to my previous travels, people are not, starstruck by me being Swedish. But if you're a new traveler, you will feel these things much more. So yeah, in a way, you will be a commodity. You will be something new in Rio as well, but you will not be treated as Harry Styles coming, into the arena. So just manage your expectations a little and ride the wave of positive energy you will have here, and you will be reaping the benefits of being a little more popular because of you being gringo as well. But you won't get it for free simply being foreigner in Rio.
You've also traveled a little bit in this region. I know that you have a video from Ukraine, at least one, maybe even have two on the channel. You've traveled to other parts of the world before you decided to focus on Brazil. What would you say did you have much dating experience here in Ukraine, for example, since I'm in Odesa, or you were just basically a traveler when you were here?
Yeah, my heart breaks thinking and talking about Ukraine. I love Ukraine. I've been traveling extensively for 2 times. I love the people, and I'm just so immensely sorry about this absolutely useless war that's going on, that no one wants, and that just needs to end. So my heart is very much with Ukraine. I am coming back when I'm allowed to come. It's a very beautiful country with, this very cool, hard, but yet open people, which Swedes very much like. And as I recall it, the nightlife in Ukraine was pretty good as well, apart from Odesa being absolutely beautiful to visit. And also, the visit to the Chernobyl was an experience I will never forget. So, yeah, Ukraine, love it. Cultural-wise, you need to bring just a little more panache, I guess. You need to have a little more confidence to come through. It's not as easy socially, meeting girls, etc., because you're in for some competition. They like real men. Am I allowed to say that in Ukraine?
Yeah, that's actually what I use on my channel. Yeah, real man mindset is what you need here.
In Rio, you're allowed to be whichever way you want. You can be a little soft as long as you're fun. You can be, the Ukrainian man as well. In Ukraine, it's like look and learn first before you adapt. How you socialize and hit on people.
Very good. So, by the way, you can actually come to Ukraine. There's no reason that you can't. Obviously, we have a war. You have to take that into account, and hopefully you make it back here. There is some connections between Sweden and Ukraine. We actually had, well, we still have, but it's unfortunately been bombed pretty heavily, a Swedish village called Gammal Svensby.
Oh, yeah.
And I've covered it twice in my videos. So hopefully when this war is over, then we'll be able to go back and document it and probably rebuild it again with Swedish help. That's what I think is likely to happen. So hopefully, if you happen to be around at that time, that you're able to come and also experience that to a certain extent. You've been here to Ukraine, you've traveled around, you're obviously based in Brazil. What do you see as being the factors that allow guys in our position, having moved to a new country from, say, Western Europe or North America, that allows them to thrive? And where do a lot of guys, I guess, mess up and they end up failing when they try to relocate to somewhere like Brazil or somewhere else that you've been hanging out in?
Well, to be honest, I don't really agree with the question. I've never had anyone failing to relocate that has actually been trying to relocate. So that is the main thing. If you want to make the move, you're actually gonna work for the move happening as well. Brazil is specifically, it's very easy to get visas for Brazil. There's so many different ways you can stay here almost indefinitely, or try the country out for 1 year at a time using the nomad visa until the 3rd year. Maybe you want to transition into an investor visa, or if you've met someone, you can get a family reunion visa. It's what they call it. There's so many visas out there. Retirement is super easy in Brazil. So with the people that have failed, I really got to have a look at what they've tried to do. The one thing that I do encourage people to think about, though, is to find a ways of getting an income that is not 100% reliant on Brazil. So either that being remote work or, as me, combining remote work with real estate. In Brazil, especially in Rio, there is a huge, I'm not sure about the financial term, but the investment opportunity is insane. I'm making 4 times as much renting out in Brazil as I did in Sweden for an apartment that was only half the price that my Swedish was. So huge investment opportunity.
So rental yields. So rental yields are just massive in Rio compared to where you had your property in Sweden.
Yes, if you look at the property value in Rio compared to what you can rent it out for, it's insane. There's no better word for it. I bought this penthouse for $270,000 or $280,000. I rent it out for $400 a night. So if I wanted to rent it out every single day of the year, I could to start with. It will take me 3.5 years or even less to get that whole investment back. That's how crazy it is here. So I'm currently living off more or less just this one penthouse that I bought for less money than my 40 square meter apartment in Stockholm was worth.
Okay, that's fantastic. How did you realize, was it through your social circle, or did you think about it in terms of a real estate investor? How did you come across the rental yields? What was the original genesis of the idea to sell the apartment in Sweden and then invest in Rio?
Your first guess was correct, social circle. So I'll try not to use any bad words here, but I have a friend who was not particularly skilled in finances or anything like that. He had some luck, I like to call it luck at least, on the crypto market, and he placed that with advice from a Brazilian investor in a penthouse in Ipanema. And I was just shocked over what he was getting back from that. You know, if he was a professional investor himself or something, I would just assume that, yes, he just made an awesome professional call. So I started looking into it. I talked to more people I know here in Rio that bought their own places, how much they actually made from it. And every time I just got shocked by how much money they were making simply by buying an attractive property, renting it out on Airbnb. So I simply, with the confidence of knowing that none of these guys were experts, I knew that I could do it at least as well or even better, and I just jumped in.
Very good. So really the social circle was the origin of the idea. This is something that I see a lot, even here in Odesa with my social circle and other places. It's just by talking to other people, and you get exposed to the opportunities that way rather than, I don't know, using an AI or having a grander strategic plan. It kind of falls into place over time with your social circles. So that's pretty good. What I was trying to get at with the guys who thrive and guys who, I guess, give up on a relocation, it wasn't really from the legal point of view, although that is a hurdle. For sure, if you're moving to Ukraine or moving to Brazil, it seems like both countries have lots of options in order to get a visa. It was more about the mindset of which guys are actually going to do really well in their new location and which others maybe end up unhappy, maybe leave after 6 months, a year, or feel even embittered towards the country that they came to. Have you noticed anything, since you obviously have a lot of clients and you also meet a lot of foreigners in Rio? What have you noticed any patterns in terms of mindset?
Well, I need to be honest here. I now work partially to help people to relocate. And I've never once met anyone that actually failed as long as they have an idea and put work into it. There are legal hurdles, but there are so many different options for getting a visa. Even if the first one doesn't work out for you, you can always seek another visa. For me personally, it wasn't a financial decision. I didn't make this transition firsthand to make money because I needed somewhere to stay. Well, that's the number one reason why I bought my apartment here. But I obviously bought one that I knew I was going to be able to rent out as well.
have you noticed, because I see lots of guys who don't thrive when they're
yes.
here. Maybe it was their motivation for coming, because a lot of them came, as we've already alluded to, for the dating prospects, and then, yeah, they didn't turn out to have so much value on the local dating market as they expected, and if that doesn't work out because that's the only thing they're fixated on, then I've seen them fail.
You're right on the money there.
Guys who came with other reasons also did well dating, and they just had a stronger mindset from the outset. It was kind of more in that line of thinking.
Yes. No, exactly. I mean, I did this ride because I loved Brazil. I wanted to stay in Brazil. If you don't have this love within you to actually be living in a place, you won't be working towards that goal with the same, strong mindset. I would say, I always say, by the way, don't move here just because you can make money renting out, buying property and renting out. First has got to be that you want to live here, you love Brazil for what it is, and that's going to constantly feed you energy to continue, moving further. If you came here just with the prospect of living, Hugh Hefner lifestyle with girls all around you, that illusion is eventually gonna, get ruined, and that might, get the energy steal the energy away from you to continue. So just let the love of being here, see yourself in a couple of years. If you don't see yourself here in 5 years still enjoying, maybe wasn't a good idea to start with, trying to relocate. I think if you're driven by the energy and will to live in a country, especially here in Brazil, there's nothing actually standing in your way.
Very good. Yeah, that's also what I've observed in this region in general. I think a lot of it is about loving the place for other things other than the beauty of the local lasses that I see guys, they end up staying longer and doing better. And a lot of it is to do with ultimately business, because they build social circles with locals and foreigners, and they do a lot of business here. So that's pretty good. Segueing a little bit about lifestyle in Brazil and comparing it to Sweden and this part of Europe, what do you think are the downsides to living in Rio? And one of the things that often comes up is safety. And even if Sweden maybe has a perception that Sweden isn't as safe as before, having been in Brazil, even though I love Brazil and I also almost moved there, security and personal safety was definitely a lot riskier there than it is even here in Ukraine. I would even say with the war, it's probably, we can look at the homicide rates and the other inconvenience of Brazil. Is that real? Or am I giving a genuine assessment of the danger factor?
Yes.
Or is that overhyped? What do you think? Or is it just about where you live in Brazil in particular?
I absolutely don't want to come off as what's the word? I don't want to make anyone angry here, but even thinking about comparing Rio to a war zone, it's lunacy.
Well, here statistically, just to explain why, here statistically the chances of me being in the wrong place at the wrong time are about 1 in a million per day. And if you looked at Rio in general, not saying where you live, probably in Ipanema or Leblon or somewhere, that is the same. But if you took a big city in Brazil and we looked at the crime statistics and the probability of being injured or killed on that particular day for the general population, well, they would look pretty comparable. That's just kind of the comparison I'm making in that sense. But outside of that, definitely the perception of crime in my own experience in Brazil was definitely something I had to be very mindful of. So what is the reality of being, we'll say, first of all, in Brazil in general, and then the part of Rio that you live in on a daily basis?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. And once again, I didn't try to be funny or anything. I did, just like everyone else, study the crime statistics of Brazil before visiting a new city. I was obsessed with it. But the problem is that the crime statistics don't really tell you much useful. So for instance, one of the most dangerous cities in Rio is Fortaleza in the northeast. When you come to Fortaleza for real, as a tourist, as a visitor, you will be coming to, the tidiest, calmest, nicest place, very structured. People are at work, 5 days of the week, in good party in the evening. During my time living there, I didn't have one single incident, not anything even remotely so. And realizing that the reason for those statistics being high is because crime happens in places you won't even visit as a tourist. So in Fortaleza, for instance, where homicides are high, it's related to the drug route, passing Fortaleza on the way from Colombia, other countries, down to southern Brazil. You don't stand in the way of the drug route or go visiting the more problematic slums or favelas in Fortaleza. The only thing you will be left with is, the odd pickpockets walking around the main boulevards and such. The same goes with Rio. If you come here only partying, hunting for girls, drinking all the time, you will be realizing a total different reality than someone who is staying here for a longer time, living a normal life, visiting nice places. The short answer is Rio can be very dangerous. You're acting stupid, you're going out alone, you're making yourself a target, especially if you're running around chasing the wrong girls. Having, the guy down there make the thinking for you is how you get into trouble in Rio. So with that said, I've already been robbed once, drugged once. First occasion, I can blame myself for a little. I was walking extensively, taking videos with my phone without any breaks, so along the beach. So the bad guys could just calculate where I would be in 10 minutes. That's where they were waiting for me to take my phone. When I was drugged, was another story. It is an actual risk here in Rio. I did get drugged when I was having one beer out in the worst neighborhood in Rio. It's called Lapa, alone. So with a few of those safety informations firm, in your short-term memory, you will just completely avoid any of those kinds of situations. My main advice here being don't go to Lapa alone. If you just follow those, you will continuously be having a good time in Rio without exposing yourself for any actual danger.
Okay, so you need to take the right precautions. It seems like in your case, a lot of it was some hard knocks maybe of learning that, because the scopolamine, right, is the drug that's been used. I know it's a big issue in Medellin for the last couple of years, so I guess it's also become a bit of an issue in Rio de Janeiro. But as long as you understand those risks and don't take undue actions that are going to increase your probability. I just remember when I was in Brazil, because my friends were from Rio, and there's just certain areas of the city we weren't going to go to. We had a protocol for when we were on Copacabana Beach because, especially petty crime was a bit of an issue. I'm talking about many years ago. It was like 20 years ago, the first time I went to Brazil. You definitely need to be aware of the risks and to structure your life in such a way that you don't end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Is that fair to say? That it's really contingent on how you behave as opposed to just an overall sense of danger when you're there.
I'm going to bring it down just a little. I don't think it's about structuring your whole life around being safe. Obsessing over safety like that, it's not necessary. It's a short list of things to not do. One of them is going out to a street party alone, going to Lapa alone. The other one, it's to get to know girls you're dating. Check their Instas, know who they are before bringing them back home. And having a social circle around you will always be a protective net. Then the real benefits will be reaped a little later on. These two incidents, they're both now 3 years back in time. I haven't had one single incident, not even a pickpocket attempt the last 3 years. When I've been thinking about this, I've been reminded of the fact that I do not longer act like a gringo. So I look the way I do, but just being at a place for a certain amount of time, adjusting to the people behave will actually, take you off the radar for the bad guys. So even though I'm obviously not from Brazil, I don't get targeted by the people anymore because I move like a carioca. My gaze is like the cariocas, and I also speak a little Portuguese. Obviously helps. So a lot of these things will come naturally for you if you're just, paying attention and not running into things just to get more of these marks in your thing.
Not just on your bedpost is what we say in English.
Exactly.
Try to increase your body count. I think it's probably the modern American expression. So it seems like integration is a large part of how to avoid these problems, because you mentioned having kind of the gait, as we say, it's the way you walk, of a carioca, which is a person from Rio. For those who haven't been to Brazil, carioca is a nickname for people who come from Rio de Janeiro. And I would say it's pretty similar in most of the countries I've hung out in. If you stand out like the naive, gullible, probably horny tourist, especially if you're a guy, then you're going to have just a world of problems and people are going to target you. In this region, it used to be more scams, right? So girls would just bring you to a restaurant, you get charged $1,000 and, a big hefty bouncer would come and tell you got to pay up, otherwise it's going to be trouble, right? It wasn't as much about scopolamine or violence. Fortunately, it did happen a little bit, but it was kind of more a rarity. So you mentioned also that you speak Portuguese. I've seen you speak on your channel and your videos. I think a little bit is a bit of underplaying the level of your Portuguese, to be frank. It sounded like you had maybe B2 Portuguese when you were in the videos. And having learned Portuguese myself many moons ago, how big an impact do you think for Brazil learning Portuguese has made in your experience there?
Well, I'm going to start with the things you guys like the most. I'm going to start with the women. And there's a tragic effect when it comes to Portuguese and the women. Because, as I said, the people in Rio, they do like new visitors, they like new cultures, they like the novelty of foreigners coming. So learning Portuguese, at least for the first 10 steps of your learning curve, will not help you at all. The moment you start speaking Portuguese, you will be less interesting for the girls. Like, you're not really a foreigner anymore, but you're not really Brazilian either. So you're somewhere in the middle. They will know you have experience. They will know you've already done and seen all the things, which makes you less interesting. So that was, not particularly a drive to learn more Portuguese. In the beginning, it's super good to learn, simple phrases, just throw a few words out there. Girls will love that. The moment you actually start speaking Portuguese, they will not be particularly attracted by it. But it does help you with literally everything else. There's no way to understand a culture as learning the language. You will simply, be more part of everything that's going on with you. You actually hear what the people on the street are talking about. So being a part of city, country will help you immensely in your travels, locating here permanently. When you're speaking Portuguese, you can also handle any daily problems that you might be getting in Brazil. You will by then also have the Brazilian social security number, which is absolutely necessary for all the basic things as getting a bus ticket, order at McDonald's, everything like that. So yes, it's absolutely necessary if you're, if you want to stay here for a longer time to learn speaking some Portuguese. You don't have to be fluent. You won't get any actual friends here unless you're speaking their language. Will always be, few walls the side of them, which makes sense. You haven't taken the time to pick up the language. Why would they bother to, we're talking about the locals here, why would they bother to actually bond with? So only downside.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, only downside is that your glow, being a tourist, will fade a little in the eyes of the women.
What I think you're referring to, because I covered it in a video many, many years ago when I was still doing a lot of geeky language videos. I'll put up in the card down below for those who want to geek out on those kind of topics. It's the intermediate plateau, basically when you go past the very basics. And I discussed it also with respect to dating, in particular in Brazil. Because I also noticed the same phenomenon that actually when I got to like an intermediate level of Portuguese, I did worse with women than when I spoke just basic Portuguese. And a lot of it was to do with the fact I was trying to say things that were more complex. And as a result of the learning process, I just looked a lot less secure and assertive. And girls were clearly just not as interested or attracted to me as a result. So, but my too long didn't read version of it is that basically I powered through it. And as you said, there's so many other perks to learning the language that ultimately it's something that's worth investing in, as long as you're going to stay long enough to obviously get the return on the investment.
Yeah, not just worth.
Do you think
not just worth investing in? You gotta freaking do it. I would say it's even disrespectful to be living in another country for years without picking up the language. It's literally the least you can do.
100% agree. One of my clients called it Conor's Law. That's why I made a video about how to thrive with the local language. But you would be amazed, especially in this part of Europe. I know that learning Portuguese, how long did it take you to get to a decent level, do you think?
It took until today. I'm learning every day. Every week I'm picking up new sentences. I don't know where they're coming from. I'm still at the level of maybe an 8-year-old when it comes to Portuguese. So fluent in a sense, but still.
I think you've been a bit modest, having seen you in the video speaking. But I would have thought that you're at least at an intermediate level, somewhere between B1 and B2, maybe having listened to the snippets in the video when you were speaking in Portuguese.
But I can tell you
my own experience
how.
having, the languages here are a good bit more difficult for a native Swedish speaker or a native English speaker to learn. I think it will probably take twice as long to learn, Ukrainian or Russian or Polish or Latvian or Lithuanian. Romanian is a lot easier. And I see that very few guys, even of my clients, ultimately, they very rarely go beyond the basic level. But you would say that it's kind of a minimum just to show respect. If you've been living in a country for years, to at least be able to do the basics.
Yes, I mean, there's no point not doing it. Showing respect is one thing, yes, but if you want to be able to actually be part of the culture, to enjoy the country, you need to be able to understand some Portuguese. And the good news here is I didn't take a single language lesson. I'm not a language wizard or anything like that. It's by immersing the culture. It's by being part of the culture. It's by talking to people. It's about maybe putting English subtitles when you're watching a movie and letting them speak in Portuguese. Just don't shut the Portuguese language out, and you will eventually pick it up. So for me, it's never been a struggle like that. I've allowed myself to do it slowly, but don't always just take the most comfortable road. Try to open yourself up for the language.
Very good. Is English widely spoken in Rio nowadays? How would you rate it? I mean, you're Swedish, so your English is almost as good as mine, right? Swedes are famous for their English language skills. Could someone get by just using English in Rio de Janeiro, or is that just unrealistic?
So I've been making a few studies on this particular subject in my videos, and when it comes to Rio, it's a very hard question to answer because it all comes down to which neighborhoods you're frequenting, which kind of girls you're looking for. If I'm allowed to use the beaches as an example, the beaches of Copacabana are more touristy. In the touristy areas, people speak English, even the locals, and in the local parts, don't. Ipanema, even more clear. Ipanema, so-called lifeguard towers, postos, they range from 7 to 12. 7 being in the very beginning of Ipanema, where people can commute easily. So it has a larger population of beachgoers from poorer areas, where 12 is the absolutely most rich people in the whole of South America. The apartments there are the most expensive in the whole of South America by square meters. As you walk from lifeguard tower 7 to 12, will go from almost no one speaking English to absolutely everyone. So here it's all about education and unfortunately also a lot about skin color. So if you come here and you only want to meet white chicks, yeah, then you're gonna do well with speaking English. Do you want to meet, the whole extent of the people in Rio, I would say maybe 1 out of 6, you might be able to have a conversation in.
Okay, so it seems like it's going to be quite important still to speak Portuguese if you want to have a full range of possibilities in daily life in Rio de Janeiro, even in Rio de Janeiro, because when you go outside of the big tourist places, the level of English, in my experience, is close to zero.
I do have some good news here, though. Communication here in Brazil, especially in Rio, it doesn't work like it does back home. Here, people have patience, tolerance with you not speaking perfectly or maybe almost not speaking at all. You can literally use sign language here. You can use Google Translator. People will patiently wait for you to get your message through. Not like trying to use your 2 years of learning French, going to Paris, trying to talk to people, and they will just, shun you. Here, they will be happy with all the few words you've learned, and they will help you to get your message through no matter what.
Okay, great. So another thing that interested me is that you actually suggested you might move back at a different stage of your life to Sweden and Europe. How likely do you think that is? What would be the conditions that might make you reconsider living in, maybe it's going to be Western Europe, maybe it's going to be my region, which I call New Europe, it's Central and Eastern Europe. What would be some of the changes, maybe in your own life circumstances or life between the two different countries that would prompt that decision to relocate back?
So me still getting rooted here in Brazil, still learning things and wanting to be part of Brazil. I can't really have the mindset of when I'm going to be leaving. So I definitely see myself here for the coming years. I'm in Brazil indefinitely. One thing that might be affecting that decision will be getting a kid and eventually putting that kid to school. In Brazil, you need to be paying for a good education, and there might be some things I'd rather want them to learn in Europe or Sweden. Might be the same with healthcare, even though Brazil does have free healthcare, but with long lines and just slightly less quality. That will be an issue when you get older and you don't feel safe with being, having a fragile health. It might be playing it. For the current time, I'm all set for Brazil, yes. Okay,
so the change in basically your family situation, like you have to think, okay, is this place Brazil to raise a child? Maybe when you get older, well, we're a long way off that, but hopefully, touch wood, that you'd have to think about the health system, probably something you're going to think about closer to retirement, and those would be the factors that would maybe make you reassess life in Brazil. Where do you see Brazil as a country? I know now that you're invested, you have your real estate there, and that's something that obviously I talk about on my channel as well, and we see the trajectory in this part of Europe, with Poland in particular being an economic juggernaut. How do you see the future economic direction of Brazil? Do you think it's a country that will continue to grow? Will it outgrow, say, Western Europe, or will it actually do what it's kind of always done historically? Brazil is the country of the future, but always the country of the future, never the country of today. So what are your thoughts on that from sitting in Rio de Janeiro?
So first of all, I need to point out, economy, it's not my strength. I am a journalist firsthand, and I've been learning from my experiences in Brazil and eventually teaching that to others. Brazil has historically been tremendously good at staying in its own way. So I am probably leaning towards saying that that will continue to some extent. Brazil has been hindering its own process for a long time. It almost seems to be in the DNA. For some reason, huge import taxes, fairly expensive for companies to expand to Brazil, and also for big companies to be exporting out of Brazil. It's not really helping the national economy. I think it will be, in the mid lane continuously for a very long time.
Okay, that's. I don't have a strong opinion on it at the moment. It's just something that always struck me speaking to people who were involved in law and economics and politics in Brazil, that this phrase that Brazil is always the country of the future, but never of today. It's been something that has frustrated many people. Obviously, it's a country with a lot of great opportunity and potential, but it just has never quite realized that level, kind of world-beating level in terms of the economy. Very good. Do you have any
I would say parting... just one of the reasons for this happening is, unfortunately, that corruption is very, much the essence, big part of the politics, and especially in politics. You won't see corruption in that way in the police force as a visitor. It does exist, but on an individual level, you get treated well by police officers. The healthcare is fairly good and just as well, but it's just something with politics in Brazil that never ever seems to get healthy.
Yeah, that's obviously a big topic here in Ukraine in particular, and then, the further east you go in Europe, we also have a bigger issue with corruption. So that's something that is probably pretty prevalent in both regions, all over Latin America. So that's something also to be aware of. Well, it's good to hear that you don't get shaken down by the police when you're there in Brazil on a regular basis. It's also something that doesn't happen here, thankfully, anymore. It was an issue when I first actually traveled to this part of Europe back 20 years ago. It was pretty regular that the police would try to shake down even tourists. But we've kind of moved on and things have improved. But it seems Brazil is kind of in the same space. Big political corruption, still something that needs to be rooted out. And I guess there's no process, maybe, like these countries that want to join the European Union, they're under pressure to show that they're able to clamp down on corruption, at least until they get in. Whilst you don't have that kind of perspective for Brazil, just by the nature that it's like half of Latin America, and it doesn't have the same goals, that maybe it's going to take a bit longer. Do you think, as a kind of a final question, that the future strategy for guys as we go, I think with technology it becomes easier and easier to live a little bit more internationally? Like we're having this call over Zoom today. You're sitting there in Brazil, I'm here in Odesa. Do you think in the future it's better to go more international in perspective, or to go more local in perspective, or there's some hybrid in between in terms for guys who are ambitious and want to get ahead?
Are we talking about any specific kind of investment here, or simply relocating yourself to a place you want to live since you can do your job remotely?
Yeah, is it that you need to think more and more internationally going forward, or should you be kind of narrowing down and focusing on something very local in order to do well, both in terms of your own style of life and also in terms of how wealthy and how you're going to grow your wealth? Because you seem to have done both, right? I mean, you basically looked internationally, but then you kind of narrowed down in one place, and that's actually how you've managed to thrive and do well, right? It's not like you're doing, I also interview people who are more the perpetual traveler type, and they're moving all the time, right? So they have this very broad international perspective. And that could also be for investors. They just kind of want to invest in lots of different places. Or do you think it's better to focus on one particular place where you can really figure everything out and make a lot more, live a better quality of life, and also probably make more money at the end of the day? What are your thoughts on that?
So, good question, and it's a little bit above my pay grade and my educational level. What I can say about Brazil is that you don't compete on the Brazilian work market. You simply don't. As a foreigner, there are a few built-in obstacles for you to don't compete with the local businesses, etc. And you're actually welcomed here as an investor and a company. Yes, then you play by the same rules. If you have a business idea that doesn't exist here to a certain extent, it might be a good idea. But in general, I would advise get your money from outside of Brazil to be able to live a better life here. It's very difficult to be competing on their local market. The path that I chose was, as so many things in my life, mostly by chance, finding this extremely prosperous niche of buying real estate, renting it out. I don't see any other, investment opportunity being remotely as good as that here in Brazil. I should mention the reason why this works so well, because the interest rate in Brazil is 15% at a base level.
Okay.
So when people want to build a house here, the loan will be, 16, 17, 18%, which obviously people won't be able to afford to a very large degree. So that is why property value is lower than it should be, while renting out to, in my case, primarily tourists that have a lot of money are willing to pay a lot for their holiday vacation home. With this in mind, with the interest being this crazy high, if you have a large chunk of money yes, then it's very, profitable to be investing that, living off the interest. Well, that's something that people that don't want to go into, particularly real estate, will do. They will use their money, live off that 15% interest instead.
Okay, there's some little overlap with this region, but big divergence. It seems like real estate, like here, the interest rate is also very hard to get a mortgage, right? It's very high, it's prohibitively high. So therefore, the property prices are lower than they would be if there were cheap credit. On the other hand, it seems to be one of the few areas that it's easy to come as a foreigner and invest and do well without being a huge investor in Brazil. Whilst this region in general, it's on a very strong, long-term upward trajectory, and it seems a lot easier to get involved in local business and take advantage of the opportunities. Whilst Brazil seems to really mean that you're going to have some remote income unless you're investing in real estate in your experience, where it seems to be a crazy bonanza at the moment in terms of the rental yields. Is that a fair description?
It's a fair description. I would describe the real estate situation as opposed to renting out as insane. It is not balanced at all. But the reason it looks like this is because the politicians want the 15% interest. It's not super hard to imagine why, because if you have a chunk of money, you get 15% back on that, you want to keep the system like that. So Brazil even annually gives a heads up if they're going to continue to have 15% or not. So it's not like you have to follow the market every week. One time annually, politicians will basically tell you, are we following the same lane as last year? And yeah, they will continue to do so.
Excellent. So I think that's been a very useful conversation for guys who are maybe considering Brazil for a trip for part of the year, or maybe to follow in your footsteps and actually relocate to Cidade de Deus, right? I mean, I don't know if you could call Rio in general Cidade de Deus, City of God, but I remember the film from there. Thanks very much, Rikard, for the conversation. I think it was really fantastic perspective, and hopefully you will get to come and enjoy Ukraine once again at some juncture in the future, and I will go back to Brazil almost certainly at a certain point and also document certain things that I want to highlight in Brazil in the future. So have a great afternoon over there in Rio. Saudades do Brasil. Missing Brazil as always, and best of luck, and I'll be following your journey on YouTube, and I'll drop obviously a link to your channel down below in the description for those who want to follow along as well.
Thank you so much, Conor. It's been an honor to be here. I very much look forward to come and visit Ukraine and help with the build-up of such a beautiful country. And looking forward to have not a Coca-Cola, but a caipirinha with you over here in Rio.
Exactly, agreed. Con certeza. Okay, ciao, ciao. Thanks very
ciao,
much.
Amigo.
Bye. If you are courageous enough to come here to Ukraine during this Russo-Ukrainian war, I have a super useful guide for you. It is called The Insider's Guide to Ukraine During the War, self-explanatory. And inside you're going to find just tons of logistical and safety information for coming here to Ukraine, as well as my hospitality guides for here in Odesa, Mama, up in the capital, Kyiv, also 3 cities in Western Ukraine, lovely Lviv, Uzhhorod, right on the border between Slovakia, Hungary, and Ukraine, and Chernovtsi, absolutely phenomenal city that is very underrated. So there you're going to get my insider tips for cafes, restaurants, bars, etc. Super useful resource for when you're coming here to Ukraine. Down below in the description to this video is a link, and you can go and invest in the guide there. On top of that, if you are coming in particular here to Odesa, a very popular route is to fly into Chisinau Airport. All airports, when I'm making this recording, are closed in Ukraine. So what most people do if they want to come to Odesa is they're going to fly to Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. It is just around 4 to 5 hours by bus from the airport to this city. And I also have a similar guide for traveling to Moldova. It's called The Insider's Guide to Magical Moldova. And It will focus on the capital, Chisinau. I have a really detailed hospitality guide for the best cafes, restaurants, bars, clubs, and shisha lounges in Moldova's capital. It took me, at least when I'm making this recording, 4 summers. I invested literally hundreds of hours going to hundreds of places in Chisinau and the surrounding areas. On top of that, I have my guide to the top 10 vineyards in Moldova. Not saying it was a tough job to do, it was just pretty exhausting to go to so many fantastic places. And Moldova is actually really famous for its viticulture. So many amazing wineries in that country. It's really, I think, a hidden gem for wine tours in this part of Europe. It's really amazing. So that is also available down below in the description to this video. Go click the link for either of them and you will get access to all that great information that is really going to help you on your trip to either Ukraine or Moldova, because it will just save you so much time. I have done the hard work for you and it was a lot of fun. So go ahead and invest in either of those or both of them if you're planning a trip to Ukraine and or Moldova.